This video will be a surface-level introduction to CSS3. As you probably know, CSS is in a transitionary period of its life cycle. CSS2, which we've been using for many years, is being phased out for the new version, CSS3. Because web browsers have to implement their handling of a new CSS version, it would be very difficult for them if we switched from CSS2 to CSS3 in one go. So, the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3C, is releasing CSS3 in a series of modules, small sections of the whole that will be adopted as the web browser CSS standard one at a time. I'm at their CSS website right now. It's w3.org/style/css/current-work. You'll want to keep an eye on this site if you're doing a lot of CSS development, because these are the folks who are deciding what CSS3 is going to look like. This page has a list of current specifications. A small handful of CSS3 modules have been added to their recommended list. CSS colors, namespaces, and selectors level 3 are all recommended, and this means that they're supported by all major web browsers right now. Most of the modules have this WD, or working draft designation, and that means that they haven't been officially added to the list of CSS features that a web browser must support to stay relevant. However, that doesn't mean that web browsers have not already implemented these features to some degree. And what we're going to be doing in this video is accessing one of these features that technically don't have to exist yet. Here's an extremely simple HTML page. It has a header and a div, which I've given an ID. In my external CSS, I've defined a rule for the ID. It has a width and a height, and I've colored it blue. Here's what the page looks like. One of the CSS3 modules which has not yet been added to the recommended list is the transform module. Using this module, we can do something that we would not have been able to do with CSS2, and that's rotate this div element. The syntax to do that looks like this. Transform, rotate, and then in parentheses the number of degrees. Let's rotate it 45 degrees. Save that, go back to the web page, and hit refresh. Unfortunately, nothing happens. I've done my research, and I know that Internet Explorer 9, Safari, Google Chrome, which I'm using right now, Opera, and Firefox, all of the major desktop web browsers, have implemented this transform rotate functionality. What these web browsers haven't done is committed to me that their implementation is just right and is not going to change the way it operates. They won't do that until W3C declares that these functionalities are added to the recommended list. So, in order to access these functionalities, I have to do a little bit of special syntax. In some ways, this is me as a developer signing an implicit contract that I understand I'm using experimental material, and I won't blame the web browser too much if something goes wrong in the future. That being said, these implementations tend to be fairly stable, and I feel confident using the transform rotate in this instance. The syntax to access the not yet recommended CSS3 options in each web browser looks very similar. To make this work in Internet Explorer 9, I'm going to preface my function with -ms-. For Safari and Chrome, I preface it with -webkit-, and so on and so on. Opera is just an O, and Firefox gets MOZ. I want to be careful to leave my initial function without any preface there, so that when the web browsers do transition to the recommended version of this functionality, it will continue to work, and they will access the fully implemented, in theory, 100% version of the function. So let's save this page. And there we go. We've rotated our div element to cover up the title of the page, but that's not the point. This is something that we could not do using CSS2. There's a lot of really exciting features coming out with CSS3, and we can access many of them in this manner already. Some of the really visually thrilling options with CSS3 are custom fonts, automated rounded borders, and rudimentary animations. These are things that CSS developers have been asking for years. They're going to take previously time-consuming or just not worth the effort processes and make them accessible to really anyone who understands basic CSS. Even if you're developing for an environment where it wouldn't be appropriate for you to use the not yet recommended modules, I highly recommend you play around and familiarize yourself with the CSS3 options as you're exposed to them. Eventually, these modules will become recommended, and already using these modules, web developers are making more visually appealing and exciting websites. If you're feeling adventurous right now, try playing around with transform skew and transform scale. Until next time.